Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to the Horizon, the voice of the Amber Woman. My name is Dr. Patience Abiedu, and with me today on this program are two fundamental patriots, two powerful ladies who have really been steadfast in this journey to reclaim our land. One of them has joined, the other one will be joining shortly. And I'm talking about the Speaker of the House, Dr. Winnie Lobati, who is here today, not in that capacity, but as a woman who wants to talk about musings or updates on our quest for recognition. Ma Winnie, let me welcome you to the Horizon, the voice of the Amber Woman. I also want to, before I give you a minute to talk, I want to greet all our viewers from all over the world, those in Ambazonian, those in neighboring La République du Cameroon, those who are refugees all over the world, and those who have settled in the diaspora and believe in our cause and are working behind the scenes to right the wrong of the past. Now we need to take a minute to greet the audience and we can dive straight to the program. Welcome to the Horizon.
My patients, thank you. Fellow viewers, I thank you for letting us in your homes today. A lot has happened, but I just want to say I'm glad to be here. My patient said I wasn't sitting as the Speaker of the House, but I'm here as a fellow Ambazonian, a sister, a mother, um, an aunt. So I just want to thank you all for letting us come into your homes this day, which is a special day for those of us who are in the United States of America. It's our Independence Day, and I pray our next independence will also be spent in the studio at Boya. Thank you, my patients.
Thank you so much. Speaking about Independence Day, yes, today is July 4th in the United States of America. I see we are in the American colors. I am in my white, red, and black, and you are in red and white. Speaking about Independence Day, let me just read something. So Independence Day, known as July 4th, is really a federal holiday in the United States of America. And it's a day that commemorates the uh, ratification of Declaration of Independence by the Second Continental Congress on July 4th, 1776, establishing the United States of America. So there's a letter that our president has sent out to the president of the United States of America. I want to read this letter, then we can delve into the program. This is from President Sako, and it says, from His Excellency Dr. Samuel Ikomi Sako, President of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia. On behalf of the people of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia, I extend heartfelt congratulations to the United States on its 259th Independence Day. The American Revolution remains a beacon for every nation seeking freedom, dignity, and self-determination. Our struggle for sovereignty shares deep historical parallels with yours. Like the 13 colonies, Ambazonia, formerly the UN Trust Territory of British Southern Cameroons, entered the Union under false promises, only to face systemic oppression, marginalization, and brutal military occupation by La République du Cameroun. We express profound gratitude to President Donald J. Trump for the bold and principled actions during taken during his first term, suspension of security assistance to La Republique in 2019 in response to credible reports of human rights abuses in the Anglophone regions, removal of Cameroon for AGOA in 2019, holding the regime accountable for persistent violations of international human rights norms. These acts affirmed America's moral leadership and demonstrated that liberty must be defended not just in word, but in deeds. As Ambazonia continues to pursue its rightful place among sovereign nations through peaceful and lawful means, we appeal to the United States to support internationally mediated negotiations that respect the sovereignty of both parties in line with UN Resolutions 1514, 1541, and 1608. Impose targeted sanctions against those responsible for crimes against civilians, encourage investment, humanitarian support, and solidarity from American faith and civil society communities. On this sacred occasion, we celebrate not only America's freedom, but also the enduring principles of justice and self-determination that unite our peoples. Happy Independence Day, America. Your dream lives on in Ambazonia. Respectfully, Dr. Samuel Ikome Sako, President, Government in Exile, Federal Republic of Ambazonia. Mawini, this was not what we were going to talk about, but you want to comment briefly, and then we talk about our updates, musings of the day, of the week.
We want to thank our president first and foremost for taking the time to acknowledge the Independence Day of the United States of America. We It's over 200 years since America became independent or declared its independence. And when America declared its independence in 1776, America went into war. Believe it or not, the empire or the British monarchy that was over them, it was really for some things that you could really state, which that of Ambazonia is even worse than what they had, because inherently God has placed freedom as a core compass and justice as a core compass in the hearts of humanity. Um, we had what is known as the Boston Tea Party, which was dubbed taxation without representation. The the monarch did impose taxes on things like sugar, tea, and those were things that the colonies had to buy, and it was so hard for them, and they couldn't see why they were had to be taxed without them having a representation in the voice of what was to be said about increasing that tax. And they revolted. There were many other little things that led to that, and many of them also may have had some debts in terms of also moving from Britain and other parts of Europe, some for religious reasons, and they all came to the United States to start a new colony. And the colony initially struggled, failed, and then ultimately took root as they kind of worked together with the natives or indigenous people then of the continent of America, which includes what we know today as the Native Americans, and that helped the colonies to survive. Initially, there were 13 colonies, and those 13 colonies were the ones that made after the Continental Congress that they had several meetings. Then they declared themselves independent. Then they had a constitutional Congress where they, interestingly, I happened to have in Pennsylvania to see even the bell that rang the and announced the independence of the United States. So why am I going on? We praise America because they gave us those freedoms, and those freedoms are what we all emulate everywhere. Everybody who has a beacon of hope that wants justice and wants democracy to thrive, they look up to America, its constitutions, its way of all thrive through and aspire that we will at least attain that. They've had this enterprise of democracy for over 260 years. And so it's working because they had strong institutions and not strong men. The strong institutions were what held them together, and everyone and held those institutions. And then because they honor it, helped to sustain it. It's not a one man show, it's not a one man thing. We'll get into that later.
Thank you so much. Yes, we all aspire to really be the great nation that our United States of America is. That is what Ambazonia is really looking forward to. So let's talk about a couple of things today, Dr. Lobadi. There was an article in the Independence News that I really love. If anybody has access to it, please always read what is coming up because it really gives us uh, information about our quest, about our plight, things that we should really know. So there was an article recently, June 22nd. It says war in the southern Cameroons from principle to pragmatism or to propaganda. Eric Chinje and the contradictions on the war. Um, so at one time, he had declared that understanding the civil war in Cameroon, that we are a nation at war. But recently, Mr. Eric Chinje has mentioned in another show that he was interviewed at that the fight for independence is a pipe dream. So let me ask you a question, by the way. What happened to Eric Chinje, in your opinion, Mawini, and why a sudden U-turn?
Let me first of all, I want to congratulate Mr. Eric Chinje for identifying the problems that he did in his first essay, Understanding the Civil War in Cameroon. I really appreciate him for that he took the time to do that. And even while he was a journalist working for CRTV and TM and the CPDM regime, he was not one of those that you would say was really liked because he used his journalistic tools to try to aspire for what was truth. But while he identified the issues and the problems to a certain extent, which he called the post 1961 betrayal of the Anglophones by La République, he really alluded to the current problems that were going, the war, the imprisonment, and the displacement of millions of um, Anglophones as we adopt and not even calling us by who our true identity. If they had even said the British West Cameroonians or British Cameroonians or of the Trust Territory of British Cameroon, it would have even been helpful. However, while this is going on, he also alluded of the power drunken regime of Mr. Biya to really disenfranchise us, assimilate us. But when he really put those things out there, everybody said, wow, this is a good write up. This is a good thing that he did. But suddenly, recently, he appeared on another show. Like you said, Mappy did say it's a pipe dream. What's a pipe dream? I would bet he explains that pipe dream as he thinks. Every pipe is a conduit. If we are today fighting and standing for our rights, and he thinks we are just in a pipe, we are a conduit that this resistance will ultimately, a pipe has two holes. It's not a dead end pipe. It's a pipe with holes. There's a beginning and there will be an end. But why suddenly the change? The writer, I think I like what Manka Rosa Parks. I liked her write up and commentaries, and even we can look at of it and do some analysis. She said in that, could it be? Could the possible reasons why Mr. Eric Chinger has a current U-turn or a change of heart, notwithstanding the reasons for what the war is and which continues to go on, are still the same? The question then that she's been pondering about is, could it be that he was bowing to some pressure, or is he under some fear, or have they also captured him with some financial in, inducement, literally bribery? Or is he just playing a game of being a responsible statesman, calling for unity, decrying war, making it look like, oh yeah, we are reasonable, we are not unreasonable. We've had so many of fall in that trap. I'm glad when you read the the there was a, I think something that the president talked about. Say, if you think you dialogue with La Republique and everything will be fine, and you think that by just going and we all talk to La Republique, everything will be fine, then you are mistaken, because La Republique, they don't have any interest. Their agenda is completely different. And their agenda is total assimilation and control of power, and keep the power with the few that they have it. So what? Could he also, um, Mrs. Manka Rosa Parks also consider the aspect? Could it be that Mr. Chinje is afraid that this Ambazonian's construct will really succeed? And what would that really mean for the Cameroon? Its fragile foundation. With post-colonial, like any other African state that have not been very fragile. Is it also the fear of the unknown that has made him think that, hey, at least I know this old regime, but then fear of what may come down the pipeline may make him wonder what it could be all about. And so he starts looking at it as a pipeline dream. As for him personally, I think he may be coming to some, because of having been in this for a few years, he may also be thinking that, is it possible? Is it not gonna happen? Should we just start making our amends and try to present ourselves, and maybe we can go back and maybe we can do some things? I even remember, I think in one of his shows, he said something about his house was ransacked or destroyed even there in Sanda. So who knows? But it behooves us to really say, somebody who knew the truth, because of time and maybe pressure, fear, or uncertainty, is moving away from the truth that he had declared, the truth that stands for justice.
So much, Winnie. Still on that subject, yes, you've mentioned a lot of reasons why it's possible for his change in tune. We don't know exactly why. It could be any of what you suggested. But it's bothersome when you have intellectual individuals, those who really know what the former British Southern Cameroon, what West Cameroon was, how the people were governed. They should know the history in terms of how we were a government with Jua and Foncha and Endele, and what became of that government when Ahijo deceived us. I should be aware of all the um, instruments that we had. We had very powerful institutions, airports.
Mhm. Sound, sound, no sound.
Um, what about now? Now?
Sound is back. Yes, sound is back. So you may have to take
Okay,
all
I
that
wonder
all
what
over
happened.
again.
Okay, so
I,
I'm going to go from where I started. I said, thank you for
yes.
what you said. You've given us reasons why they maybe have maybe a change in tune by Mr. Eric Chinje. You gave us many possibilities, but it's bothersome when we think about someone who is an intellectual, who knows the subject, who knows exactly what happened to the former British Southern Cameroons from the days of good governance with our forefathers, Endele Foncha Jua, to when we got uh, uh, was tricked. I want to use the word tricked in joining La République du Cameroon, and what has transpired since then. We lost all our great institutions, the airports, the plantations, the marketing board, all those great things that made us very unique nations. In those days, people from Ghana were coming to, and other countries were coming to get their education from our side of the world, and we had so much going for us and nothing to show for today. So it really is a problem, Mawini, when you have people who know the truth and they decide to bend it, and they decide not to continue to say what is truthful. Yes, you could be a journalist in the system and still speak truth to power. I know that sometimes they're afraid for their lives, but I don't believe he resides in Southern Cameroons now. He lives out of the country. So why not use this opportunity to clear the air and make things right? I don't know whether you want to just opine on that quickly, Mawini, before we go to the next topic.
Yes, my patience. I think it's a good thing that you talked about that we had that we really had good educational institutions, and one of them being like Sacred Heart that is well renowned in our area, which many of the La Republique citizens converted them, and now they send their kids to our schools. And then you and those were let me call them parochial or religious bodies that really inculcated truth and honesty in us as we went to schools. You and I were also in one of those schools where, of course, religious and
Mm.
what they also call moral instruction was fundamental in our education, and not just only doing the education for education's sake, but moral values were also instilled in us. But with that being said, people may change. Sometimes, like I mentioned earlier, it could be corruption, it could be co-capitation, there may be systemic manipulation of or even ambition and fear for something that may have made people at one point that stood on the straight and narrow path decide that I better give this up because I can see that my other people are getting ahead, even though they are so corrupt. A good example would be see what Mr. Ponji Atanga did, and he is so-called minister. If that's all the kinds of people that we know as ministers in Cameroon in that kind of character, I don't change. Yes, but they have to want to change. But just like we're talking about the U-turn of Mr. Eric changes, so can the U-turn happen both positively and negatively. But in this time, it really makes us say, yeah, is it because he wants to frequently go home? And yet he's afraid that if he goes home, seeing what has been done to others who try to go home. Take for example, last month you heard about Mr. Karim's being sentenced to life imprisonment. Remember, Mr. Abdul Karim, when he was part of the team for this team Ambazonia for this Swiss-led process, he had that freedom to travel back and forth because he knew that La République was afraid because they knew there was an international um, community around him, so they didn't do anything to him. But when La République knew they were going to pull out of that setting, they pulled out of the Swiss-led process for negotiation, and then they arrested Abdul Karim. So you can see that there's also that fear factor where
Yeah.
many Ambazonians by DNA and birth, they may not want to call themselves as such, but they are by DNA or bloodline, may be afraid of what may happen to them should they speak truth to power. So
Yes.
we
Mm-hmm.
cannot ignore that. But also, something is very evident that even if he thinks that it's a pipe dream, he should not forget Southern Sudan. How long did it take Southern Sudan before they got their independence, even though they may have some hiccups on their way? What about Eritrea, Namibia, East Timor, Kosovo?
Mm-hmm.
Can he ignore all those and say it was all a pipe dream?
Countries. You
No,
know,
we can.
I don't want to put you on the spot, Mawini, but based on what you've said, um, because I would think that for someone who is so knowledgeable, who is held in a high standard, speaking as a Southern Cameroonian, as an well, I will not call him an Amazonian, as an Anglophone, a Southern Cameroonian. Um, you know, why not just be quiet and not say anything? Why say something that negates the fight of the people? So, in that sense, would you consider him a traitor or just a tragic figure? What do you think? Because I personally would think that he's a traitor, but I don't want to put words in your mouth. Go ahead.
I am very careful to just call him a traitor. If this Mr. Eric Chinje truly took time to articulate our problems, he came to problem, he could diagnose the problem, but he didn't know how to solve the problem. And it is better for him to let the people who know how to solve the problem, and let him not muck the water as they are trying to solve the problem. He honestly diagnosed the problem, maybe not in its entirety, but to a certain extent, to what was truth. Um, I will call him at this moment a tragic figure and not a traitor. I'm yet to wait and see if once we start getting to Boya, as we get there, if is going to be the one to betray us and try to open the door and let La Republic come in so that they can disrupt what our government as it will be established and rooted on the ground. Then I will call him a traitor. Right now, a lot of this may be rhetoric, maybe somebody has promised him something. I'll leave it as such. But he diagnosed the problem, but is not willing to solve the problem the way you and I are solving the problem. He has his own way. But solving the problem is not solving the problem by um, acquiescing to what La République wants and subjugating ourselves under their control and negating everything that we had in the past and say, oh, let's just sit under this peace and unity. No, that's not what we really need to. So at this, I still call him a tragic figure. I still have some hope because you remember when the prime minister went to Bamenda and he went there to talk to the people, and when he got to Bamenda, he started speaking like the people. And everybody said,
Yes.
there you go. The truth is coming out. So we
Yes.
know that something, yes, he may be living out of the country. You don't know how often he visits Cameroon. So, or the Cameroons. Let me put that in plurals. The Cameroons. You don't know how often he visits. He may be a frequent visitor to the Cameroons.
All right. Thank you so much. So, in conclusion, we'll say that some people think he's a traitor and some people think he's a tragic figure. We'll leave it at that. And it's up to
Yeah.
him to prove himself eventually. So that those of us who think that he's failed Ambazonian and so we feel that he's betrayed us, so we call him a traitor, we can say, oh, we made a mistake because he has done XYZ. So the ball is in his court. Thank you so much, my Winnie. Moving on to another topic. The other subject today, which we came across, uh, is on, let me get to it because I just lost it in my text here. I just want to read the topic as it comes across. Um, okay, so it says, unmasking the CPDM manifesto, the Bia Mien Kampf, with Dr. Martin Mungwa, Secretary of State for Communications, Federal Republic of Amazonia. So a lot of people may not have read this interview, which is dated July 3rd, just from yesterday. So it's a new thing. And it's really a deep, rich material that will open our eyes. And some of the information we just knew inherently, some things you just know for just by knowing, and some things you know by learning. So so this was an interview given to Dr. Mungwa by interview conducted by Jennifer McChristin and Young Jean-Pierre with the editorial supervision of Ali Dan Ishmael, the London editor-in-chief. So I'm just going to read something briefly and then I'll ask you some questions. So in June 2025, sometime last month, the Independentist, which is the article where this is published in, published a landmark expose on communal liberalism and the glossary on decentralization in Cameroon in 2 volumes. The report argued that together these texts from the ideological and operational blueprint for the systematic erasure of Ambazonia under the cover of administrative reforms. Together, these 2 documents also represent the most sustained assault on the common law system in Cameroon since English was made the administrative language in the British Southern Cameroons under the 1951 Macpherson Constitution. Okay, let's talk about this, Mawini. Let's talk about this. And I will hope that people will go ahead and read this when they have time. If they have not seen it, I'm going to share it when we finish on here. Um, so, first of all, how does communal liberalism frame dissent? I don't know what I'm just getting straight to it because maybe let me go further. I think I'm asking you a question before. Let me go to the beginning because I had my questions out here in some strange order. Bear with me. By the way, you read the article, right? What did you think about it in
Yes,
general?
I did. I think that book, based on that book, Liberalism, which was written in French, um, the central and core thesis of that book is to have one center of gravity, and that center of gravity is the president or presidency, as you may call. And in that write up, I didn't read the book. Granted, I am looking at this analysis and the interview. Diversity is really meant to melt into uniformity. So diverse opinions are not welcome. And the president is the overall overarching ruler, even over parliament by ordinances. Governors or deals, as they know them in Cameroon, are just de facto proconsuls. A simple message from that communal liberalism is really that if power travels further outside from Yaoundé, then the nation becomes weaker, which is very diametrically opposite to what we believe is our system of government, which we say power belongs to the people, and we stand on this Anglo-Saxon democratic principle. I don't even think France operates in this kind of a way, even in their own democratic principle. But this is another way to keep your hand, grab the center, hold everything, and control for fear that if you let the people know what is right and really have what it takes for them to enjoy democracy, you will lose something. If that be the case, and which is the case, then there is something that a few elitists have been put to protect for someone, or they are protecting it for themselves.
So,
Mabish?
they come up with some beautiful phrases. So, in
Mhm.
general, you see the phrase communal liberalism, and you think that is something that is beautiful for a nation. But in essence, you're telling us that it's just watered down the fact that the people have no voice because the power is right there in Yaoundé, and it has to come from Yaoundé before you down there in the village can do anything. And even though you want to do something, you will not be able to do what you think is best for your own people. Moving
Yes.
along, still in that article, what does Bia mean by creating a new ethnic group? What did you gather from this?
Oh, that was interesting because a new ethnic group to him is, let's remove all the boundaries. Those boundaries that protect minority, those boundaries which will be a good example with, let's eliminate and erase what we call the southern Cameroons, and let's chop them off and give them what we call northwest, southwest. We call them different names, um, and then eventually we'll put them at loggerheads to fight each other so that they don't remember what they had together. And then we are wiping and erasing them. They see each other as enemies. I am just going, that's their playbook.
Right.
That's why you will see the fight. Oh, those who are from Bamenda, you are the ones coming to cause trouble in the southern region. My patience, most of us were born in the southern region. Our parents worked for the government of West Cameroon. So how do you throw us out where that's our country? And then you want to erase our boundaries. We still have our international stone mats. So another thing that they did was, besides removing boundary, was to make sure that um, the education system favors if you write your exam in French, and if you dare even dream Believe me, they say there's no scholarship. If you want some scholarship, then you need to really maybe change your name to some Tangana or something, write the French
Mhm.
exam, excel, and you are known and your family is known, then you'll get the scholarship and study abroad. Which and so I remember in the 80s, then I don't want to give my age, but I remember in the 80s when I think it was Damjoya who was the Minister of Education. He wanted to wipe out GCE. And all they wanted was we would write the back, the probatoire. Those were the things. So we were going to throw out our Anglo-Saxon education system in favor, in exchange, so that we could write these French exams that they are doing. Mm.
Mhm.
Oh, trust me, the students took to the streets.
Right.
They took to the street. I was one of those. So this thing is core in me. Injustice cannot stand. And in fair, and so we talk about those scholarships. It's not only scholarship, professional schools that they go to in Cameroon, those professional schools. How many of our people, even if they write those exams and excel in those exams, then they have another thing that they call interview. And then in those interviews, that's where they weed out, oh, les gens là, c'est le either les Bami or les gens de Bamenda or les gens de, so then they can weed you out there. No matter how eloquent, no matter how well you do, it's just another way of weeding you out. So official documents of the country, they are predominantly in French, and even if they are translated, they may be or may not be. You remember why the lawyers went out? They had a new law
Mhm.
and it was never
Mhm.
translated into
Mhm.
English, or it's poorly translated, and which a little word change of um, people translating what they will call in French mot à mot translation or word for word and not putting it in context, that now changes the whole meaning and makes it difficult even for the average speaking English person to understand it. And then you now have misinterpretation because now you also have in the courts judges, magistrates who are from the French speaking side and don't understand that the common law that resides in our area, and so they can just interpret it based on what they have on the other side and what was written in French. So we have all these means of so-called ethnic methods of doing so-called new ethnic group. The new ethnic group is assimilate and make
Mhm.
everybody fall in line to what you want in your communal liberalism.
Absolutely. You know, one thing that they did that to today really bothers me, and it has to do with how they call married women. You know, the name, how they are the way of naming the wives. For example, my mother, poor thing, her name has to have the EPSEFC that in all their
Yes.
names as wives. That is ridiculous. So you have this long name that you have your regular name and you have this other FC attached to it. That's the French way of
Yes.
doing things. And
Yes.
that is just watering down our system. You know,
Exactly.
and Bia said it himself when he went to the Paris climate the meeting in I don't know what year was that. He said they try to assimilate us. They try to make us their one, and they failed, and they will continue to fail because we can never be one with these people. They can do what, continue killing us through this war, like what? But we'll continue to educate our people. Our people know the truth, even as young as they are. Those in secondary schools, primary schools, they know the truth. The parents have told them one day, we will have control, freedom, control, rule over our land. Let me move on to on this article. So the book speaks of freedom in responsibility. What does that mean in practice?
Free ability. I love the catchphrase, but I wish the catchphrase really meant what it was. Talking about that long name with a poos attached to it, it's either reversed the other way. They give Madame, let's say Madame XXX, Nee, mean born
Mm-hmm.
as, that's
Mm-hmm.
your maiden name. So they have two ways to go about this. It's either they give your name and say Epus and then they put your husband's name at the end, or they list you as your husband's name and then say you were born maiden, this was your name, and they give
Right.
all that. So they have two ways. But this book of freedom and responsibility, why don't they let us have the freedom and responsibility for the people that want to, they choose how they want their names written. That's not, but going back to this, in this really write up and uh, interview, um, the freedom to operate media is on, or freedom of association, is a facade. It's just a fallacy, because all they do is they want you can have a media house, you can have a newspaper, but everything that you write or you broadcast has to be in alignment, so unity of the government as they want you to um, to sell it out to the audience. They do not want truth at all. It is only their narrative. And if, as long as you toe the line with their narrative, then you have the freedom to operate in the responsible way that they think is right for you. But you cannot critique the government. You cannot speak truth to the government. And another example would be freedom to march or
Mm-hmm.
freedom of association. You can't really do that without really going to obtain a permit. You cannot protest. Take, for example, I would say California was one where when the guilders and the writers of movies for several months, almost a year or more, were
Mm-hmm.
protesting that AI was taking over their jobs. You
Yeah.
never saw anybody go there and say, "Hey, wait, show me your permit. Did you apply to come and do this protest? Or why are you protesting?" They carried their placards and protested for a long time because their their worth had been reduced to AI. And what they had written in the past was going to be input into a system, and AI was now going to start spitting out twists and turns of what they are. And so then their own knowledge was going to not be reimbursed commensurate to what they had put in. So for them, the responsibility is to really test your loyalty to, and not you being committed to the state and to have a civil virtue. Is to test your loyalty to whoever they want and have in power, who is, that's their president. Mind you, we do respect our president in America,
Mm-hmm.
and we have a 4-year term of government. We don't
Mm-hmm.
keep changing laws every day to suit and keep things. We have term limits, but that's not the case. We uphold our state, our institutions, and our constitution, and not so much the an individual. The individual is just there to occupy that office at the time they are there and to uphold those institutions as well.
Oh, thank you so much. Um, Also, reading along, it talks about communal liberalism framing dissent. So the question is, how does communal liberalism frame dissent? Before you answer that, let me just read quickly what Dr. Mungwa said, and then you put yours on your own phrasing. Dissent is labeled anti-patriotic noise. The
Mm-hmm.
2014 anti-terror law passed in 48 hours criminalizes any public criticism that could disturb public order. Peaceful teachers demanded English language textbook and suddenly faced the same legal category as bomb makers. I know you already just mentioned about in California here, where the actors and actresses, the Guild Riders, they decided to go on a strike because of fear of what AI, artificial intelligence, was doing to their profession. So things like that, in this framework of communal liberalism, will be different. So, what is your take on this, Mawini?
I think you already just nailed it. Uh, Anytime you have a dissent or a difference of opinion or a political view or a reason to protest against something that is affecting the people or a group of minority. Remember, they don't want the minorities to be protected. They call it that patriotic noise. Then it also then they criminalize your
Yeah,
protest. They criminalize your difference of opinion because it doesn't align with that their so-called unity and communal liberalism. So now you are now labeled a terrorist. You see why? Now you understand why the Ambazonian state army fighting for the liberation and the restoration of the statehood of the Ambazonian nation. That you know now you see why they label them terrorists. It's because it's gone counter to what they expected. They want the power to structure to stay in Yaoundé. And it's for that same reason why they dismantled our political system. When Haijo did that, sacked our prime minister that was put in there by the people voting for his party, and then he came to power as prime minister. That whole system was just scraped overnight, and a new person was put who was speaker of or the whether it's called president or speaker of the parliament as well as the prime minister, and then the vice president seat was scraped off, and constitution just being changed randomly, whichever constitution they ever had, if they really didn't have one, because the so-called 1961 constitution that was supposed to be ratified, they claimed they ratified. Our parliament never ratified that, and so we were not supposed to be held under those laws because we were not part of them. We had not gotten in. They ran and ratified something and imposed it on us. So when we are this, so you find out why they are using such mechanism of saying if you are a decent, if your opinion political wise, or if your position to decry something that is wrong becomes different from their communal liberalism manifesto, then you are a terrorist. And they try to sell that as much as possible to the international community so that they can they can just make the Amazonia cause look like we were some terrorists just going around putting bombs, going around killing people, killing civilians, taking killing children at school, or which is not the case. We haven't really done that. We love education. Our people love education. We love our children. We love our nation, and we hold on to what we have. And that is for that reason why you find it that it's not most of our people, we've stayed within our territory even all these years. We haven't crossed the international landmark to go and be fighting La Republique in their own territory. I guarantee you a day is coming and a day will come. It will not be just like the day when the UPS people ran into Amazonia or British Southern Cameroons and that seek refuge. A day is coming when many of them will run back to us because we will have our nation. We will have centralization and our statehood will be restored. And when that happens, you will run back because it will be hot on your side because they have been so ignoring what is happening, that I don't know if the elections is even really going to happen. And if it does happen, what's going to happen? Unless they want to stay and be just laissez faire, we don't really care. And then they will realize that it is not the case. It's social media time. Information is going. People are getting educated. But if you want to stay in ignorance and don't really know what democracy is about, and you let a few club members run your nation, steal your resources, especially because they're also stealing the resources of Ambazonia, then we put our foot down. We say no. Thank you.
So those we're talking about two books. The one that is written by Bia, the Communal Liberalism by Paul Bia, and then the Glossary on Decentralization by Leopold Dean Early Atkin. They are both written in French, Mawini. Why do you think so?
Um, the target audience. First of all, the truth is, we already talked about that. The assimilation process they think is a done deal. So you want to glorify your audience and make them feel good about themselves, and your second class citizens remain subservient to you. So, reading in the French, if they really cared about the so called Cameroon as their construct that they want today, they could have written that book too in English. Yeah, maybe they have, and we don't know, but they could have written that book in English and let the Southern Cameroonians also have a read of the book. My patience, I would ask you a question before and it will be a yes or no. When we were in school and in secondary school, the only history that we were taught was the European history. We never and maybe world history a bit. We never really were taught Cameroon history. And for me, the reason for that was a cover up because they did
Yeah,
not want us to be aware. Do you agree or disagree with that?
I agree.
Yeah. And so,
Everything that just to continue, everything that I've learned now is just because of what is happening because of the war. Then I started reading and digging. And mind you, just before you continue, I went to London recently with my husband, and I went to two libraries. I went to Oxford and also some libraries in London, and we have archives of information, real information on what happened in southern Cameroons. I mean, I scanned a lot of documents that will be shared eventually uh, when the time is right. Right, but it tells me that these are all historical facts that most of our people are not privy to because the Cameroon government, the French La République du Cameroun, has decided to hide this from our people. If our people knew the truth as it really is, they will stand for the truth, fight for liberty, fight for their freedom. But they've been kept blind because of a system. But go ahead, Mawini. You asked me that question, I answered it, but go ahead.
thank you. Thank you. I know it's supposed to be the other way around, but I just wanted you to attest to the fact that what we are seeing, why this language thing, it's because they've upheld one group of people, and those of us who came, we were supposed to be assimilated, and so we were supposed to be speaking French. And I also remember when late Cardinal Toumi said he was in was it France or somewhere, and one of the people there of the French government was saying how they have done very well in assimilating us. That guy did not know that he was, because he spoke French very fluently, and they couldn't pick up that he was an Anglophone
Yeah,
by birth, and
yeah,
so they gave it away and thought that, yeah, okay, you've done this and you're doing a good job at bringing the Anglophones under the umbrella of the French system, and so pretty soon you will have no identity. But their goal was really to make sure that the citizens who are of the French, let me not say French, of the French speaking Cameroon extract feel entitled, feel superior, and then they will have no reason to because they have somebody else that they are looking low on. So then they will have no reason to look up and see and criticize the government for what it's doing wrong. It's another tactic.
Thank you so much. Moving along. So I'm going to read the question. I'm going to answer how Dr. Mungba answered it, and then you're going to say it in your own words how you interpret it also. It said, what role does the president play in this ideology? And here was his response. The president is the architect, the empire, the enforcer. All governors, divisional officers, and even council treasurers swear personal allegiance to him. When local councils adopt bylaws, they do not enter force until the centrally appointed DO stamps them approved. Elected mayors thus govern on sufferance, while appointees wield the veto pen. So, Mawini, what role does the president, President Dia, or whoever is going to take over after him, play in this ideology?
Okay, let's just dissect those words: architect, umpire, enforcer. An architect is the one that designs whatever thing you want to construct, or you want to build, or you want to move forward and display. So, the president, it means that everything about a whole nation lies in that one person, being the architect, the designer of how the nation is supposed to work. Mind you, your constitutions, your local council do not have any voice in this. And you, if you are drunk one night and you decide and say, today we're chopping off everybody's left finger of their left toes, then or left hand, it's gone because you are the architect. Okay, now as the umpire, let's I'm glad because we're talking this, and today is American Independence Day, and we have what we call separation of powers. You have the judiciary, you have the legislative, and you have the executive. The umpire, and there is this check and balances. The legislative works on the laws. They are the ones that write the laws and they put the laws out there, and then they execute. The president or the executive branch now executes those laws, means that they make sure that they can enforce the law, and if there are any discrepancies or people that violate the laws as was written, then guess what happens? Then you have the judiciary that comes in to say, hey, yeah, you violated the law, or that law that was written violated the constitution. So that's where we deal with separation of powers and separate powers, as well as separate responsibility of every arm of government. But as you know, in America, while we have that at the federal level, we also have things also at the state levels. And when you go down to the state levels, we also have things at the county levels, all the way down to your local councils, which means your city. And then you go all the way down to PTA, school districts, all those positions. Even judges are even voted in most of our, to be a judge in certain offices in America, you're voted in by your constituency. So if you have the president as the umpire, it means the president is above the law. The president knows it all. The state, the law, the institutions, he is above it, and he draws the rules and he makes the rules at all time. Nobody cross checks if that rule is law, because now he becomes the enforcer, the umpire to say it is wrong or right, and then we get to reward you or we punish you. and he becomes the one who creates it. So the embodiment of the state institutions are in one person. That is a fallacious, terrible, wicked way. You have no checks and balance. I guarantee you, try where you have one, whether it's a mom or a dad, he does everything, dictates everything. He says, today we're only cooking this, we'll only be eating rice and ogbono soup every day in this house, and no child goes to school, no child goes out, you don't do. Guess what? Chaos is bound to be in that kind of a household. And we're just talking about a small micro unit of family, talking about family. Then what about a whole nation that you're dealing with over 250 ethnic languages that we have, and several tribes, and then let alone two distinct nations? Whether they like it or not, we are two distinct nations. The nation of Southern Cameroon and the nation of La République du Cameroon. That's the name they adopted during independence. Our name as Southern Cameroons has not changed in the books of the United Nations. I don't think it has. So that, dealing with two nations like that and trying to be the embodiment of the lawmaker, the executor, and the prosecutor and the enforcer, it's absurd in light of democracy.
Wow. When I look at this document, Mawini, there's so many questions, and I don't know how much time we have. So I'm going to probably do things in a different way quickly so that you can have time to answer most of the questions. Um, Looking at the section that has to do with the glossary, decentralization
Yeah.
or deception. Decentralization or deception. Um, What is the glossary of decentralization in Cameroon trying to achieve? Because the glossary means you have some key words that if you read those words, it tells you what it means, and that's the meaning. So it's like a dictionary. You read a word, you know the meaning. So they have a glossary of decentralization. Um, what are they trying to achieve?
Just break the word decentralization. D means away, and centralization, from the center, which means that decentralization means power is not in the center, but it's decentralized and distributed. It sounds wonderful.
It does.
It sounds progressive. But is that what actually is happening? It's a deeper meaning to this.
Mhm.
And what's their official purpose? And it's an, a control narrative. What they do is, what they call decentralization, is that all the power from all the are really centralized and given to the president. Remember, the umpire, the enforcer, and the architect, it's now given to the people. The people really do not have the power or the authority to do anything because their votes really. So Mr. Bia now becomes the centralist, the ideology and the illusion that which stands really progressive, that they are decentralized for all power. And once that all power that is given to him, which is in him by the way they've set up their communal liberalism, they're saying that you are a community that is liberated. And because you are liberated, let me now interpret this in another way. You have decided and freely and chosen to give all your powers to this central figure. And call it decentralization. In reality, the transfer of sovereignty of the people to um, Mr. Bia drives the governance, but it's not a delegation of power as many people may think. It's really a central figure, that president that has the power to suspend the constitution, modify it without even legislative process, and even withdraw anything he doesn't like by so-called decrees. So this president is really the central figure, and all power emanates from him. The architect, not just the architect, the umpire and the enforcer. That's really what it is, and not a decentralization. Those It's an oxymoron. It's really an oxymoron to say that
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
person is the enforcer, the umpire, and the architect, and then he decentralizes power. It's an
Absolutely.
oxymoron.
You're right. I was just thinking about that. You're absolutely right. So let me just read what this says. This decentralization is not defined as a transfer of sovereignty or people-driven governance. Instead, it is framed as a delegation of powers from the central government. Delegated powers can be modified, suspended, or withdrawn by decree. In practical terms, no region can claim permanent authority over anything, not schools, not roads, not local taxes, not hospitals, without Yaoundé's consent. Yet it's called decentralization. So I'm glad the way I really like the way you put it. It's an oxymoron. Okay, moving on. I want to talk about why the part of chieftaincy. Okay, it
Oh
says,
yes.
why is the chieftaincy clause so dangerous? I don't know what if you want me to read what Dr. Muga wrote and then you talk. Do you should I
Just
read
read
what
a
he?
bit. Read
Okay,
what he said. Just listen.
it says traditionally chieftaincy in Ambazonia was sacred and rooted in lineage and local legitimacy. The glossary allows for the appointment or dismissal of chiefs by administrative fear. This undermines the cultural fabric and creates proxy rulers to the state rather than to the people. Once a chief can be fired for disrupting harmony, traditional governance becomes an arm of political control. Go ahead, Mawini.
Okay,
Lord help me.
let's come to this. I think chieftaincy, or what we call traditional rule, leadership, is the way that the British kind of ruled indirectly. But here's the thing: whether we like it or not, even with or without democracy, when every tribe or nation, they have their own rules and governing rules and establishment of how authority and power is. In, for example, for those of us in the northern zone, predominantly chieftaincy is by bloodline inheritance. And if for by any reason you can have sub chiefs, and usually it's a process you will have to have. Even if you have a sub chief within or a quarter head, so there are processes that they follow within the traditional way of going to ask, because they've grown big and they want a sub chief to happen. And there are traditional ways that they do that. And most often, if you see, the sub chief is somebody who is originally also from the palace, where now they are sent and they move to go start another region of let me say, local authority or governance or leadership of chieftaincy, or as you may call, sub chief. But in other parts of Cameroon, be Cameroons, I use that word pluralistic. Some of how they do is chieftaincy is not by bloodline, it's by voting. And also, so they have a communal rule, which means they have a village council that will help in that process for them to select a chief, probably out of their village council. And then they follow that. And every time, because they add new people in the village council, they have the opportunity to vote that. So when you start as a deal, you ascend and you now start appointing chiefs, and you ascribe chieftaincy or fondancy to so-called individuals, then anybody can buy chieftaincy. If you don't like somebody because you don't like their political ideology, you can dethrone them and put anyone else that you want. So that respect that the people would have for their chief or fund that they know by right, and they have traditions and rules that they do, it's eroded. So you are basically eroding the culture of a people and disrupting the stability of, let me say, a microcosmic or a village setting, because now the people say that's not our fun, that's not our chief, we didn't put him there, and disrespect comes. Then you create a monster called a chief now, who now only listens to the bidding of the people that put him there, because they also are the ones that give him the money to stay there. So there are so many things about this chieftaincy that is dangerous. Now they are put on some payroll, government payroll, and guess who gets to go pay them? Give them their money. Is the DO that appointed them or put them there, or the DO that the chiefs can, the DOs can be informed. They need to sit in their office, and when it's time for a chief to be put or a fund, let the people locally in our Ambazonian setting, Southern Cameroon, we will have our chief. We can just tell you that this is who. That's why we had a House of Chiefs. We had
Exactly.
the British have had a House of Chiefs. They recognize the
Yeah.
importance of keeping the local governance in the hands of the local indigenous people, so as not to disrupt the fabric of the society and their culture, and to keep it intact.
Wow. Speaking about House of Chiefs, I did scan documents of their first minute when on my trip to the library. I scanned
Uh-huh.
documents of their first minute as the House of Chief. I
Wow.
will send them to you. I'm sure you will
I
you
would
you will
love
love
to
it.
do that.
Yes. So we have a great history, and we should not be fooled by all these
Rich.
lofty terms that they are putting in their glossary to deceive us. Um, Let me just move forward. This document is so juicy. It's so lengthy.
Mhm.
Also, we don't have time to answer all those questions. There's so many. But let me just remove to the section that says tactics and deceit, that has to do with CPDM.
Mhm.
Um, it says, why does the CPDM promote this framework internationally?
Hmm. You know, there are two reasons. They want to project the fact that they're in control and that they care. And this, whether it's the communal liberalism or their manifesto, is to give the idea that we are all inclusive,
Mhm.
and to sell, and to say without us, this country would disintegrate. And the powers that be that want all the natural resources from these two countries or nations want to make sure that their interests is protected. And so selling that is, mind you, my patience, it is not the entire CPD. It's only a few people within the clique. Many people are there dancing to go get their bread and sardine, and maybe
Mhm.
500 or 1 day, and then they drink and they go back.
Mhm.
But the people, the people that want to keep this and keep this intact, really are a group of a mild group, less than 0.1% of the population of La République du Cameroon, that have power, money, and control of everything, that they are the architect, that they are the enforcer, and that they are the empire. And so they want to keep it because they can steal as much as the one, they can control power. Everything is at their disposal. Think about how much they embezzle. Think about
Wow.
how much of many of them put in foreign banks, all are
Mhm.
dotted all around the world. It is that which they want to keep control of, and they will fight to keep it, not only by selling it to the international community, but also making the people think that, oh, without us, everything is going to crumble. tell President Macron of France, if we don't keep a beer in our government, then everything will collapse.
Mhm.
And I heard recently, Miss Miss Brenda Beer is now the Minister of Tourism. If that is true, unless it's an AI generated information, who knows?
Who knows? Okay, let me read what Dr. Mungwa wrote on this topic. He said, uh, so why does the CPM promote this framework internationally? And you rightfully answered it, but let me just phrase what he said. It's a public relations strategy. The
Mhm.
CPDM uses this text to win legitimacy from donors and diplomatic allies. By citing reform-oriented language, they unlock development grants and neutralize criticism. For example, when questioned by the UN or EU, officials simply point to the glossary as evidence of
Mhm.
progress, although the reality is unchanged. That's really a chameleon. Um, Let me ask certain parts and read because I want us to end the program soon by talking about a recent allegation that came our way that France has taken over. The French ambassador has taken over because Biya can no longer do his job. But I want us to end the program with that note. But let me read some of these things here, and then uh, you opine on them quickly, and then we move on. What is the political utility of decentralization without power? It creates scapegoats. When services fail, the central government blames local officials. When locals protest, elected mayors are sacrificed while appointed dues continue unchecked. It diffuses accountability while preserving control. Why was this glossary published now? That is in June of 2025. The timing coincided with growing international scrutiny of Cameroon's internal crisis. Publishing the glossary allows the regime to argue that it is addressing grievances constructively. In reality, it offers a paper solution to a political problem. And the last question, are Cameroonian elites aware of this deceit? Yes. We talked briefly about Eric Chinje earlier. Yes, many elites benefit from central appointments. They enjoy privileges una- unavailable to elected officials. I mean, privileges available to elected officials like cars, stipends with impunity. Because the system rewards loyalty over merit, few within the elite class are willing to challenge it. So, Mawini, you heard some of those questions. What is your take, yeah, about the three questions I just posed?
Okay, I'll handle maybe one and then I may opine on the others. The publication of this glossary,
Mhm.
which sounds sweet and nice to anybody who reads it and thinks, "Wow, these people are progressive." Like again, you said, international scrutiny is playing a role, and you want to give an idea, you want to give the international community that we're really solving this. And guess what? Why did they do that? When they made sure that they have their own person sitting as a president of the United Nations now, so that way, whatever is coming through, they can always say, "We are solving the problem." We had the monologue, or what they call dialogue, and we are just implementing it in phases. And we are now, remember how they had so many different things, but all this is a, let me put it this way: if an egg is rotten inside, no matter how you paint it and carry it to the Easter party,
It's
the
rotten.
person that will break that egg, even no matter how colorful that egg was in that Easter, even if he won the first prize for being the best color egg, crack that egg, nobody can eat it. It will stink. So if they know that the international community knows it, and they know what has been happening, they know that La République du Cameroon is a time bomb to happen. Their elections with a 90-something-year-old guy who is, for better word to use medically, is demented,
Mhm.
in poor health, and has been so for decades, cannot, and has had power given to an appointee who signs on his behalf, and a prime minister who sits there is a window dressing prime minister and calls himself a prime minister just for window dressing, and so that, like you said, they can clap hands and get the facts of the falling crumbs falling from the table, have all those cars, have all those whatever, and be able to have some budget so they can steal a lot of the money. And the people, the masses on the ground, are suffering. What kind So what are we saying? You can publish all what you want, even if you go carry the United States Constitution and come and impose it on Corona and give it to those very people, it will be abused. It will not be used because they have not learned to understand the process of being of good governance. It's a problem for them, and they are not interested in that. It's a facade. It's fallacious what they put out here in this glossary. It's just so that people will think that, oh, that's a wonderful country. What do you say? How did you give me? We have so many African Americans in the United States who are tracing back their genetic roots and going back
Mhm.
to Africa. How
Yeah.
can they go to a country like that and say they want to go and say, many of them, some of them have genes from Cameroon and they know it, but the mess that the country offers, the bribery and corruption, you can't even go through a 10-kilometer stretch of street. It's not highway, street or roads that you will not be pulled aside and asked for bribe. What kind of a nation is that? It's all this looks good on paper, looks good. Somebody probably wrote this and got a PhD with it, and so that they could give them something. And yes, they did that. But guess what? There is no implementation, and even in the implementation, the meanings of this word are misconstrued to fit their own political agenda and their power to keep control.
Yes, yes, yes. They want that power to keep control and deceive the international community that all is well in that part of the world. Um, this the I Mawini will probably have to continue this conversation on another day that you are available, because there's so much in this document that we cannot cover. But we want to change topic right now and talk about something that came our way. I don't know, it's an allegation, as you rightly said. So let me just read what it says. We didn't really have the time to verify it, but it doesn't really matter, because there's some sort of, we know what happens in that part of the world anyway. Based on what France does to African countries. I'm going to read this breaking news. It says, breaking news: French ambassador takes over power in Cameroon amid growing reports that Cameroon's French installed President Paul Biya is no longer capable of governing due to old age and memory loss. France, Cameroon's former colonial ruler, has reportedly activated a clause from its colonial era agreement. This clause grants the French ambassador in Yaoundé, Cameroon, temporary authority to oversee the country's affairs until a new president is chosen. This development follows the appointment by French President Emmanuel Macron of a former French military general as the new ambassador to Cameroon. According to multiple sources, this ambassador is now effectively running the country, as President Biya, now 92 and visibly frail, is no longer able to perform his duties. The Cameroonian presidency is said to now report directly to the French embassy, awaiting decisions from Paris before implementing any major policies. With presidential elections scheduled for October, and several political figures from Cameroon reportedly traveling to France to present their political agenda, seeking approval from French authorities, who are believed to have the final say on who will succeed Biya. It is important to know that since Cameroon's so-called independence in 1960, the country has only had 2 presidents, both widely seen as French appointees rather than democratically elected leaders. Paul Biya, who has ruled for 43 years, has long been considered a key protector of French interests in the region. With his rule nearing its end, many believe that the upcoming election will serve merely as a mechanism for Paris to appoint another loyal figure to maintain its influence over the country. Okay, this is an allegation, so we don't know whether it's true, although there's some truth in it because we know how the system works. We know that Biya and his predecessor, Ahijo, were all appointees by France. Winnie, before you comment, there's a video that I want us to see, a YouTube video. If it's available right now, it would be great to see it, and then I'll let you talk about this allegation and the video. Hopefully it's ready.
Francophone neighboring countries. We also wish to send this message to the President of France, Emmanuel Macron, that what France is doing under his watch is indeed a crime against humanity. As such, it must, and as a matter of urgency, desist from spreading terrorism in Nigeria and other African countries, because whether we like it or not, we are Africans and this is our land. The movement against slavery and terrorism sees the actions of France as an assault on our sovereignty as a country. That is Nigeria. This is indeed despicable and must be condemned by all and sundry. We are also aware that the actions of France are hinged on economic benefits, given the avalanche of economic resources in northeast Nigeria, particularly the Lake Chad Basin region. This is indeed an attempt at recolonization. What did I say? It is another attempt at recolonization by France after we have been colonized by Britain. We are not under France, and we will not allow for France to come and colonize us again by violence, which by all standards is peril and won't stand the test of time because Nigerians will resist every move with passion. Let me pause here and give you one statistics. In March 2008, listen to this quote and please put it on record and on your medium. Without Africa, France will slide down into the rank of 23rd power of the world. That is, quote and unquote, former French President Jacques Chirac. Another quote and unquote, without Africa, France will have no history in the 21st century, by Francois Mitterrand. This was a prophecy given in 1957. Now, I want to digress a little bit. In 14 African countries are obliged by France through the colonial pact to put 85% of their reserves in the Central Bank of France. That is not enough for them. Under the French Ministry of Finance, in 2014, Togo and 13 other African countries still have to pay the colonial debt, which they do not owe, to France. African leaders who refuse to pay are either killed or victims of coup d'etat, and those who obey these oppressive conditions are supported and rewarded with a lifetime rulership and not leadership of their people. This strangulating colonial system offers France, please put it on record, a cash of about 500 billion US dollars. I mean 500 billion US dollars year in, year out, which they now in turn use to purchase weapons of destruction for fellow Africans and especially Nigerians, for us to begin to kill one another. This is unacceptable to us. It is no longer tolerable. We will not accept it. Yes. And in the case for Nigerians to kill Nigerians, we say no to this. We say no. You cannot continue to use money from Africa to buy weapons, arms and ammunition for Nigerians and other African countries to kill themselves. We say no. I said we say no. No. We say no. We say no. The movement against slavery is also calling on United Nations to investigate the role of France in the spread of terrorism in Nigeria and the whole of Africa. France must also stop the sale of arms and ammunition to the Boko Haram terrorist groups in the interest of peace and tranquility. That is what we need for us to progress and succeed. This is on the heels that the bulk of the French NGOs operating in Northeast Nigeria are carrying out espionage activities and passing the same to the leadership of the Boko Haram terrorist groups on the instruction of French authorities because of their business interests. The business of selling arms and ammunition to Nigerians to kill Nigerians. The movement against slavery and terrorism is indeed saying enough is enough. Enough is enough. Enough is enough. And France must stop the distasteful support it has been extending to the Boko Haram terrorist group in Nigeria, which is aimed at making Nigeria erupt in flames. And Nigeria will not erupt in flames. Instead, France will erupt in flames in the mighty name of Jesus. The movement against slavery and terrorism wishes to inform the President of France, Emmanuel Macron, that the world is indeed watching closely, and we, especially Nigerians, are also watching very closely. And should the French authorities not halt the spread of terrorism in Nigeria, the day of reckoning is indeed near. And very, very near. Again, I want to stress another fact. A cargo plane was intercepted either in Chad or Niger the other time, and in Mali, and it was all African children. Some of them were Nigerian children, and they were taking them for what? For their pedophile people to destroy the destiny of these children, and then after these children die, they use them to harvest human organs for their own children. No child is greater than any other child. We say no to France. I say we say no to France. We say no to France. We say no to France. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Just replace Nigeria with Ambazonia, because everything she's saying applies to Ambazonia. Everything. So that lady speaking could have been me speaking, could have been you, Maui, speaking on behalf of Ambazonia. But go ahead about the allegation and what was in this video, Mawini.
The allegation that we are hearing is no surprise, because if you remember, that colonial pact that that France signed with its former colonies, it's basically kicked into gear. Remember, we are still putting this as alleged. It is alleged that that's what is happening, and so we are not so sure. But even if it is not the case, it's a good time for us to teach our people that the pact that France signed with its former colonial master dealt in two phases: protection of their interests, protection of the presidents and the presidency, those who will protect their interests, and also protect it. And they do not care how many Africans die, as long as they can keep one person in power, and that one person is going to be there to protect their interests, and also like the running of the resources, the cash flow of the African nations to be kept into the French treasury. Remember, it's not in some French market making some interest. It's the French treasury. Mm-hmm. And so being in the French treasury means you have to keep going back to beg. And why are you going to beg for money that is yours and take it with an interest when it's yours? Mm-hmm. Why should you? If you have food in your house and your kids are hungry, why would you take that food, give your kids, and go pay your neighbor for the food that you had in your house that was yours? Mm-hmm. It doesn't make sense. So really, the Francophone countries that were former French colonies, I don't know if those of Belgium too are falling under the same plight. They literally do not have a president that they voted for. Thank God for Chori that just came up in Burkina Faso, and we can see some changes, and there are threats on his life, because he's not going to dance to that tune anymore. And anytime a president has not danced to the tune of France, you just be sure there's going to be a coup d'etat. And that coup d'etat is finance sponsored overtly and covertly by France and and the nations that want to continue to keep their resources, steal their resources, impoverish the children, and come back with some little aid and say, "Oh, see how we are helping the poor African children." Yeah, somebody also said something to the effect that why do we get raw materials? Our products are not really fully processed or even partially processed. Why are those sent abroad and then they bring back those things to us and sell what we dug from our land so that you can take it for pennies? And even when you take it for pennies, the money doesn't stay with us. And then you go process it and bring it back, some of it to us. And then now our people are in debt. It is not a good thing. And we need to really, really consider this. I applaud this lady in Nigeria for looking France squarely in the eye. I hope it did have an impact or it did educate the Nigerian community, especially those in western northeast of Nigeria and hopefully the all of the east, that they can now for themselves see that the Boko Haram, as it's alleged in that video, is also being financed by France. They buy the ammunition and give them. So once you destabilize a place with a group that you may dub them terrorists or non-terrorists, and you finance them, what do? You destabilize them. You come in to claim you are the savior. What is that? It's hypocrisy in its highest level, pretense. It's all about their interests. Is the interest more valuable than bringing stability and engaging with true partnership, having true business relationships with these people, the Africans, in a manner that everyone is respected? Why do you still disrespect Africans because you think that they are uneducated or you think that they cannot take care of themselves? Before slavery, Africans thrived and survived. Africa would have been the continent with the highest population had it not been for slave trade. Slave trade where millions perished across the Atlantic, coming to America, South and North American, the American continent, and some going across the Atlantic up into the Near East Asia and as well as in the Arab zone, which many people don't realize that many of the Africans that crossed the Atlantic and were subservient in the Arab area, I would say, most of them were castrated so they would not reproduce and that's why you see that area very free of Africans. And today we still have that slavery happening where they go across and you still have people dying across the Sahara Desert, crossing to go to work in many of those countries in maybe Europe or in the Middle East, and they end up being put in camps. Some are domestic servants and all their rights, their passports taken. We see those stories on YouTube all the time. People who have been there and how they struggle to escape. So Lord, let's have the people of Africa have that which is theirs. And anybody
Yeah,
who wants to trade with them, come and you do honest deals. Honest
exactly.
deals.
Thank you so much, Ma Winnie. You've been wonderful as usual. This July 4th, the people in the United States of America are celebrating their own Independence Day. And we look forward to the day that we will celebrate ours in Boya, because we do celebrate every October 1st, but in exile.
Mhm.
Some of our people do celebrate back home. But we want that day where it will be recognized internationally and we can freely celebrate in our territory in the former British Southern Cameroons. We have international boundaries with La Republic of Cameroon. So we will celebrate in our own area while they can go back and celebrate January 1st, their own Independence Day. Mawini, I'd like you to give your closing remarks as we end today's program. And I'm looking forward to you coming back here in the near future.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. In conclusion, I think when we look back at what Eric Chinger said, there is one and only one thing that we as Ambazonians have, i- um, is to disregard his shifting position, look at what he had diagnosed as some of the problems, embrace that, and look at the plausible solutions that we as the government and the people of Amazonia have, so that we can now not walk in confusion but have a clear cut goal, knowing that our ultimate destination is to be in Boya and have a full governing body and restoring all our state institutions. So let's not forget that. Let's keep our eye on the target. Let's keep our eye. Yes, we won't need international recognition, but guess what? Sometimes the journey is too long and many people get tired on the way. But even as we get tired on the way, we will still pick up ourselves. We will rest. We will drink water. We will eat the little dry plantains or granules that we have fried, or the kati kati that they have put, or the fufu and granola that they have ground, mix and cook, or the roasted plantains, or whatever that we have, or fried corn that we have in our back as we go through this journey to get to Boya. We will eat those little ones and we will continue to get to Boya. And don't forget, the freedom that you fight to pay for has more value than that which is just given to you on a platter, because the person who gives it to you may easily take it back from you if they give you with conditions, which is what France does to its colonies, and by extension, trying to impose it on us who were never part of a French colony. We were never part of that. And if you actually go in reality, I pray the French speaking Cameroon citizen will really read their history and know that in reality, they were never even a colony of France. They were a trust territory. Their former colonial master was the Germans, and so it was for us. But after World War One, we became endemity, war endemity, and we were split based on how the various colonial masters for the British on the western part of Cameroon, those who think that Cameroon is one and indivisible. If you want the German Cameroon, that it will be your one and indivisible Cameroon, you will have to get back to Chad, you will have to go to Nigeria, you have to go to Central
Absolutely.
African Republic, you have to go down to Congo, and cut back all those territory that belong to the German Cameroon to put it. And who says you're going to put it, and who is going to give you that capital and make you the
Mhm.
person, and what under what authority? Our boundaries were set according to the OAU, or the African Union, um, at the time of our independence. That is our modern boundaries. So at the day of independence, January 1, for the French speaking Cameroonians, your boundary was locked in that day. That's your boundary. Ours was 1961. And if we so choose that we want to come into a treaty of agreement, not a coerced relationship that we were forced, that we had to vote A or B, fire or the ocean, like one of our elderly Ambazonians said. If we choose at any given point, after we have our sovereignty, restore our state institution, and we choose we want to come into a treaty of agreement and choose to be and merge with you, that's different. But coercing, thievery, um, manipulations to get us to be under you, it's not going to work. This fight
Mhm.
will continue for generations to come until
Yeah.
truth and justice is restored for the
Yes.
people of Southern Cameroons.
Amen, amen. Until truth and justice prevails. And the only outcome when truth and justice prevails is that La République du Cameroon and Southern Cameroons will live as good neighbors, hopefully good neighbors. You know, we will definitely be neighbors, but we hope we'll be good neighbors. Thank you so much for being on the horizon, the voice of the Amber Woman. This is the end of today's program. We took longer than we intended to, and the material was still so much to cover. But we want to wish those of you that are out there in the United States of America celebrating the Independence Day to remember that you, as Southern Cameroons, your own home is your home. You can never be free in somebody else's land. We may be citizens of United States of America, but we would prefer to be permanent citizens of Ambazonia. So with that said, thank you for being on the Voice of the Horizon, and we pray that we'll be back next week and so forth till we get to our homeland. Thank you, and may God bless all of you. Bye for now.